Alright, this is some bullshit. Alright, this is some bullshit. Trump is now so salty that his little birthday military parade was a massive failure, that not enough people turned out compared to the No Kings protests, people literally protesting his existence as president on his own birthday. He got so triggered about it, so mad, that he has now ordered retaliation targeted at the cities that are hosting No Kings protests, like LA and Seattle and New York. He is going to be using ICE, not just the Marines and the National Guard, which he was already using to quell these protests, but he is going to be using ICE to ramp up raids as retaliation in these cities. You guys in chat seem surprised. I'm surprised y'all don't know. This has been today's big breaking news. Trump has basically declared war on these cities. Like, he is going to have ICE rooting through them, like, every nook and cranny. Like, he is now targeting 99% of their focus on these cities now. It is pretty scary. All sanctuary cities? No. All cities that hosted No Kings protests.
Welcome back. In a ramp-up of his immigration crackdown, President Trump has ordered federal officials to expand efforts to detain and deport undocumented migrants in Democratic-run cities. In a social media post yesterday, Trump called...
Yeah. Sorry, not even the cities that are hosting these protests, just cities that are run by Democrats. This is literally Trump indicating more or less that he is declaring war on essentially every American city. Like, there are very few, if any, American cities that are run by Republicans. So it's just entirely targeted at us city dwellers, I guess. Which, of course, Trump thrives off of votes from rural areas and the suburbs. So keeping up the image of being overtly hostile towards people who live in cities is actually very beneficial, because the majority of the voter power in America is rural and suburbanites, which tend to actually hate people that live in cities for some reason. Or at least they've been fear-mongered about how awful cities are, so surely anyone who chooses to live in one must be awful.
Called on ICE agents to, quote, do all in their power to achieve the very important goal of delivering the single largest mass deportation program in history. The directive builds on a White House order from April that calls on officials to document sanctuary cities that are not complying with its agenda, threatening those that fail to do so may lose federal funding. It also comes amid continued protests in Los Angeles and other major cities against the administration's immigration policies. Joining us now, Democratic...
Dude, that is so real, retard. What a power move would be if during the next RNC, Grindr did a big public announcement that they were going to shut down their services through the RNC because of the high volume of usage that the platform tends to get during that event, and the fact that they would rather not have to deal with the maintenance. Obviously, it would be nonsense. Like, they would be making that up, but I still think it would be hilarious. Such a power move to claim that, and to actually shut the site down for a day during the RNC, or for a couple days during the RNC, and to publicly claim that's why. Because the Republicans are so into Grindr, they crashed the app. They did crash it once, but, you know, that was a one-off thing. It's hard to say if it was caused by all the Republican men there using Grindr. It's a funny headcanon, but I would love if Grindr itself leaned into it. That would go crazy.
Congressman Joe Morelli of New York. He's the ranking member of the Committee on House Administration. And I want to get to your work on that committee because it's especially important in light of what we've seen in Minnesota. But first, let's start on immigration.
Now, keep in mind, by the way, Trump is doing this in the aftermath of 2 publicly elected officials getting murdered in their homes. And there was an attempt on another. So, well, I guess publicly elected official and his wife, and her husband, who was also a publicly elected official, and a third was injured as well. Like, Trump is doing this immediately after that. He's done his big public statement trying to distance himself from the terrorist attack that happened on these Minnesota representatives, but when the next day he turns around and does this, more or less declaring war on Democrat-run cities, it rings a little hollow. It feels like maybe he's trying to motivate and empower future right-wing radical terrorists.
Your reaction to President Trump ordering federal officials to expand efforts against undocumented migrants in so-called Democratic-run cities, the fact that he's targeting folks there as opposed to anywhere else in the country, what's the message that sends?
Well, look, we should remember that tens of thousands of these folks are here in the United States legally. They are documented, even though the president uses the word undocumented or worse, illegal. They were here legally, and the president has changed the rules after people got here for tens of thousands of Venezuelans, for other people who were here legally. And secondly, a number of people were here and documented, and the United States was considering asylum for them. So he's changed the rules. It'd be like it when my great-grandparents came here legally, and then a few years later were told, you're no longer welcome, and we started deporting people.
Dude, I need, like, a compilation of clips of people after Trump won the election saying, guys, don't get super scared. Don't freak out. Don't act like Trump's just gonna go against the Constitution. Do you remember when we were watching, like, no hate to him or anything, but, you know, I like his stuff, but it was my big disagreement with this video. We were watching a video from, I think his name is Zaid Tabani, or Tabini. He made a video that we reacted to after Trump won. And I remember he said, the Constitution exists. Trump can't go against the Constitution. And I remember pausing the video after he said that, and he was, like, hammering that point home. It was, like, the thesis of his video. I was like, I don't agree with that. I believe that in Trump's mind, if a team of people with guns are not going to take him away and lock him in a cell, he can do whatever he wants. If no one tells him no when he makes an order, if everyone down the chain is a sycophant or has been scared into being a sycophant and will not tell him no, then he can do whatever he wants. And we've seen that proven true over the last 6 months, and here we are now, where the conversation is no longer about whether or not Trump could possibly go against the Constitution. Now it's a matter of how much of the Constitution is going to be left when he's done with it. That's where we're at now.
So bad that even the Trump administration cabinet members had to persuade the president not to continue some of these deportations. And frankly, remember how they were first described, people who are here awaiting consideration of their asylum pleas. They were described as being lazy and that we were all paying for them to be here. It turns out they're now going to workplaces where they're gainfully employed. So, look, there's a lot going on here. I don't, by any means, think that protests should turn violent in any way, but this is completely un-American and contrary to everything that we have told these individuals when they came to the United States.
Yeah, increasing and ramping up and hyper-targeting Democrat cities with ICE raids is not a reasonable response to violent protesting. Like, you could argue, if there is massive outbursts of violent protesting, that sending in the National Guard or police would be appropriate if it was that bad. But if we're, like, talking about a response to that, in what world do ICE raids help keep the streets calm during a protest? They're protesting the raids.
Well, and there is a clear difference between the way that the Trump administration says they were elected to go after violent illegal immigrants, and then, of course, those who are just trying to make a living here and be on a path to set themselves up here in this country. I think this is something we're going to continue following. But at the same time, we've seen you posting, as well as others on social media, about the horrific shootings in Minnesota this weekend of state lawmakers there. You play an interesting role here because you're not just a Democratic member responding to this, but then you're also the head on the Democratic side of the House Admin Committee that deals with security at the U.S. Capitol. Has the posture changed? I know that the House is out this week, but should lawmakers expect a stepped-up presence? Do you think that lawmakers need more security, whether it's private or Capitol Police or some kind of mix of both?
There will not be federal provisions for congressmen, senators, or anyone else to get bodyguards or extra protection after this. Not unless it was a Republican. Even to be fair, even after it's happened to Republicans in the past, I don't think they pushed for it then either. Or at least it didn't pass, if they did. I remember there was this, baseball game. This was years and years and years ago. But there was a baseball game where a bunch of conservative, Republican pundits and politicians were there, and a Bernie supporter took a gun and shot and I think killed several people there. Now, these guys were all monstrous, ghoulish Republicans, horrible people. And so there was this big tug-of-war online between people that were borderline going as far as worshiping the guy like he's Luigi Mangione. And then, of course, you had the people that were very put off by that because this was a shooting, after all, right? Things have changed a lot. The Luigi Mangione worship would not have happened 5 or 6 years ago. Everybody would have been talking about how it's just the crazy left who likes this Luigi guy. But yeah. Rip those guys. I mean, they're burning in the lakes, but still a tragedy. I mean, yeah, they needed to be able to live long enough to see the consequences of their horrible policy, ideally.
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank law enforcement who worked so hard over the weekend in Minnesota and around the country to make sure that the suspect was apprehended. We're grateful for their hard work. Secondly, our prayers are with not only Senator Hoffman and his wife Yvette, who have come out of surgery, but also certainly our prayers and thoughts are with State Representative Hortman and her husband Mark, who were tragically killed. I think there is growing concern. I think Leader Jeffries and I have continued to work on this. I have continued to ask for additional security going far back as when there was the violence in Butler, Pennsylvania a year ago. So I think members continue to be concerned, and incidents like this do nothing but add fuel to the concern that people are under threat who are elected officials at all levels of government. Certainly, we're concerned about members of Congress being targeted. So I think there needs to be more security and more concern paid to this, or we'll chase people away from participating in this process who will say, not only for their personal safety, but for their families' safety, that they simply aren't going to run for office or participate in public life. And that would be, I think, tragic indeed.
Have you seen more of your colleagues?
It's worrying to me that this is going to be a random event, not random, but an event that was unpredicted by Republicans that they are going to use to their advantage. That after this, Democrat politicians are going to feel a little afraid. If we go against Trump, are we going to be the next ones that get, murdered in our own homes by someone sympathetic to the president? Because that's the kind of country we're in right now. We're in the kind of country where the president, with his oligarchy, doesn't even have to pay an assassin to take out political dissidents. He has his own cult following out there willing to kill political dissidents within our government for him, for free, and tank the consequences for it voluntarily. That is insane. I don't know if there's ever been a fascist with that much power. like that level of a cult of personality, he's not just a fascist leader. He is a extremely popular influencer with a fan base. That's what Trump is. That's a scary combo that I don't think has actually ever existed. Sure, Hitler was technically an influencer, but not in the same way. Not in the same way as Trump.
Requesting or putting in their own budgets personal security because of this increased threat number? I mean, Capitol Police tracks this stuff. What are the conversations you have with your colleagues and with Capitol Police?
Yeah, I think very much people are concerned. And again, more for their families typically than they are for themselves. Look, they're not going to be intimidated. They're going to continue to do their jobs. That's a recurring theme that I heard speaking to members all through the weekend, that they're going to continue to do the work that they have to do on behalf of their community and on behalf of the American people. But I would be less than candid if I said that people aren't alarmed at what happened. Certainly having a manifesto with elected officials targeted on the lists and carrying out essentially executions is something that would trouble anyone. So people are concerned, but again, they're not going to be intimidated. They're going to do their jobs, and we're going to continue to work on trying to create a safer environment for all these folks.
Yeah, that's a really important task, one that needs to be bipartisan in nature. For now, we'll leave it there. Democratic Congressman Joe Morelli of New York, thank you for coming on with us, as always.
Thank you, Allie.
That was a good segment, but I wanted to show you guys what some of this looks like. These ICE raids have been insane. I believe we have, is this? Do I have footage of it here? Yeah, here we are.
Protests against immigration enforcement across the country, and right here in Los Angeles, we saw huge crowds take over the streets this weekend. Well, today we received some new numbers from the LAPD since the protests began on June 7th. 575 people have been arrested in downtown LA. 10 officers have been injured. The LAPD says no one was arrested overnight. However, between Saturday night into Sunday morning, 37 people were arrested. Now, President Trump is vowing to continue immigration raids, focusing on large cities, including Los Angeles. And this comes as an appeals court is expected to rule tomorrow on the administration's use of the National Guard. Lolita Lopez live on our news and to unpack all of this for us. Lolita.
Yeah, Michael, the president is actually north of the border in Canada attending the G7 summit, where leaders from around the world are discussing international events, among them the current conflict between Israel and Iran. The president also bringing up the immigration.
What an unfortunate name.
Rates here and what he wants to see across the country.
Another immigration raid, this time outside of Home Depot in Upland this morning. Our cameras capturing what appears to.
You know what really doesn't help with the vibe of ICE? They all look like a bunch of Dale Gribbles. You know what I'm talking about? You guys know when Dale Gribble wears the ski mask when it's cold out with his sunglasses and his cigarette? This guy is giving me that energy right now. I feel like everybody... Hold on. I swear to God, I did not notice the enormous propane tank in the background when I made the King of the Hill reference. Like, maybe something, like, in my brain made the connection subconsciously. But that's crazy. That is a big tank of propane.
Raid, this time outside of Home Depot in Upland this morning. Our cameras capturing what appears to be federal agents in the community and speaking with neighbors who tell us what they say they witnessed.
Unmarked vehicles that were confirmed to be immigration agents were here at this Home Depot trying to take day laborers.
The operation is part of massive immigration raids that have upended communities across Southern California for more than a week. The president now doubling down on his mass deportation plans, posting on his social media that he wanted to expand efforts to detain and deport, focusing specifically on large cities, what he calls the core of the Democrat power center, cities like Chicago, New York, and Los Angeles. Protests continue.
No
People
mention of
speaking out
Seattle.
against immigration raids
Cringe.
and President Trump's call to use the National Guard and the U.S. Marines to assist in the operations. The state challenged the federalization of the National Guard in court. Last week, a federal judge ruled those actions were unlawful. Soon after, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals paused the lower court ruling, taking on the case in a hearing scheduled for Tuesday.
What would the National Guard do if the entire crowd started grittying at the police line? Not a single person in the crowd is walking or running. Just everybody is doing a form-perfect, slowly encroaching gritty. Can you fire upon a crowd of people doing the gritty? You know that you're, like, there will never be a headline that gets more attention. You know, your police career might be over if you do that, because everyone's going to be paying attention to the story of the cops who fired into a crowd of people doing the gritty. Hold the line. Keep grittying forward. Define gritty. Look up Fortnite gritty emote, and you'll know what I'm talking about. You know how you can, like, do the gritty in Fortnite, but like, walk forward? You just an entire crowd of, like, 10,000 people doing that. Is a flash mob a form of insurrection? Well, in that case, I guess the Harlem Shake was technically a form of insurrection when you think about it, retard, if that's true. Anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this segment, what I had to say, or found it entertaining, educational, or enjoyable in any way, then please consider leaving a like and a comment on my video or stream, whichever one you're watching. It really does help immensely. It's totally free, and it only takes a second. If you haven't left a comment yet, or you don't know what to comment, then you can just say, "Who up Xandering their haul?" and it'll still really help the channel. I really do appreciate it. And of course, if you haven't already, and you want to see more from me in the future, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell icon to turn on all notifications so YouTube actually tells you when I go live or upload new videos in the future. And of course, if you want to see more from me on other platforms, you should follow all my social medias linked down below in the description. Particularly, my fan Discord, which is the main hub of my community and fan base. I host gaming events, call-in streams, watch parties, and movie nights there every single week on Fridays, and on top of that, I do announcements for all my new uploads and streams there. So if you don't want to miss anything, that's the place to be. Join through the link down below. Why will my nose not stop itching right now? Anyway, finally, if you want to support me directly, financially, help me keep the lights on and a roof above my head here at the Xander Hall studio, then please consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live. It really does help a lot. You can also support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, StreamElements, Patreon, or you can buy some custom Xander Hall merchandise through the Streamlabs link down below in the description. Regardless of how you support me, though, thank you all so much for watching, as always, and have a good one.